Well, hello, friends, and thank you so much. Those of us that jumped over from our general opening session to the Beef Production and Marketing Committee meeting here this afternoon. Again, we are broadcasting live from the Delta Hotel in Helena, Montana. My name is Lane Nordland. Happy to be with you here once again. And as we welcome you to the Beef Production and Marketing Committee, we would just like to share some details on how we are going to present policy, ask questions, and then vote on the policy and resolutions presented in today's proceedings. To bring forward policy during a committee meeting, you must submit the proposed policy through either the chat feature to your right on our online platform. Once that proposed policy is submitted in the chat, you will click on the Share Audio and Video button to ask the moderator to grant you access to present the proposed policy live to our viewers via our online platform. Then you will be able to answer the viewers and explain in detail policy. Again, this is going to be a new opportunity for us, so let's just be patient and flexible as we continue to learn how to create these grassroots policies for our policy book. Now, voting on the policy will be done strictly through the chat feature to the right. Any eligible MSGA members who wish to vote must be registered for the virtual annual convention and type their full name. Again, we need your full name. And you can vote in the chat feature. Montana Stockgrower staff will then verify that the votes are counted and are from eligible Montana Stockgrowers Association members. Now, if you're gathering with multiple stockgrower members in one location to attend virtual annual conventions, such as an affiliate group, you must still vote in the chat by listing out each person's first and last name, in addition to how they will vote, yay or nay. Again, so if there's a bunch of you gathered there watching this meeting, you must each vote. You must enter their names individually, first and last full name, and with the yay or nay vote along with that. We have to follow these guidelines as part of our proceedings here today. Now, to ensure voting is done accordingly by MSGA bylaws, only correct voting submissions will be counted as I mentioned. But before we get started and turn the proceedings over to Dan Moore, we would like to thank a few of our annual convention sponsors for their generous support of the convention here this year. It's coming, guys, I promise. But how about those cattle markets today, friends? They look pretty good. It's coming, I promise. I just wonder how many of you out there have been plowing snow for the past few days, or if you're lucky enough to have it blow away.
Agriculture and rural communities with reliable and consistent credit and financial services including crop insurance, business services, and Northwest Marketplace Services.
Keystone XL will generate hundreds of millions of dollars in property taxes for municipalities in many U.S. counties, providing valuable funds that can be spent on schools, hospitals, roads, and more. Along the way, pipeline construction will create 42,000 direct, indirect, and induced employment opportunities for Americans. Pipelines are still by far the safest way to transport oil over great distances, and this pipeline will meet American energy needs and ensure long-term energy by providing oil from a friendly, reliable, and environmentally responsible neighbor. Visit KeystoneXL.com to learn more.
All right, a big thank you to all of our sponsors for joining us and supporting the convention here this year. Well, at this time, we'd like to introduce Dan Moore, who will take over the proceedings for the Beef Production and Marketing Committee here today. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Lane. Thanks, everybody, for your patience and attendance. I think it's going pretty well so far, knock on wood. My first order of business will be to introduce Mike Honeycutt, who's the Department of Livestock Executive Officer, who will give us an update on the Department of Livestock. Mike.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's my pleasure to be here with you today and bring greetings on behalf of the Montana Board of Livestock and all the staff of the Montana Department of Livestock, and share with you some things that are upcoming within the department and some things that we would like all stock growers members to be thinking about. The first thing I wanted to share today is that obviously, like any other organization in the state and across the country and the world, we've been impacted by COVID-19 and trying to deal with the challenges of running an organization spread out across the entire state of Montana and keep our essential functions going so that we can keep commerce moving in the livestock industry. So I just want to give a public thank you to all of our constituents who have been dealing with it, but mainly I want to give a public thank you to our staff who have been able to carry on their essential functions at livestock markets, inspecting meat, inspecting dairy products, getting out and doing brand inspections and doing all the things we need to keep this industry moving, even as we deal with a terrible crisis as we've been dealing with across our country over the last year. Another thing I wanted to share with everyone today is obviously you're all aware that another legislative session is upon us. As you heard Jay Bodner mention earlier, if you're watching the general session, that there are in the neighborhood of 1,200 bills that are already being contemplated by legislators as we look towards the session. A fair number of those will probably have impact upon livestock. So we'll be watching those just like your membership are watching them very closely. I'm sure we'll see lots of legislative concepts that we have seen in the past that will be coming around again, and areas that we have lots of experience in dealing with. I did want to call attention that the department actually has 6 legislative priorities that we'll be putting forward during this legislative session that we want all of our livestock producers to be aware of. First is there's 3 bills that are coming from the Livestock Loss Board for this session. The first would give the Livestock Loss Board the ability to apply a multiplier to loss payments. Many of you are familiar with this concept. Sometimes, particularly in rough country where you have a loss, you may be able to find one and prove one carcass, but you came home much shorter than that. And the concept of a multiplier is to be able to allocate for some of that loss gap that occurs because we can't find those carcasses out on the rangelands at certain times of year. Another Livestock Loss Board bill that will be coming forward will be trying to stabilize the funding for their loss prevention grants. Some of you are familiar with these. Most of you are familiar with the claims payments, but the Livestock Loss Board also annually disperses grants to groups that are trying to prevent and mitigate predator and livestock conflict through fencing, flattery, composting, a number of different issues. The stabilization of that funding is very important because the previous way it's been done has been tied to having money left over from the claims. And of course, as we've seen lots of predator losses across the state, we do see a time in the future where there may not be funds to roll over to be able to help with those prevention programs. The Livestock Loss Board is also wanting to look at how they pay for losses on tribal reservations. Currently, they can only pay for losses on tribal reservations if they have a agreement with that particular tribal government, and oftentimes that is not in place. So this would open that up a little bit. From the Department of Livestock proper, we are looking to establish an indemnity fund to help offset the losses of producers who have to euthanize or put down animals because of disease issues. Oftentimes, it can be very difficult to negotiate with the federal government on what is the acceptable rate payment. So I always give probably the broadest example is that sometimes what we deal with is having the federal government wanting to pay a cull rate for a bull, and in those cases, that's probably not a payment you want to accept. We would like to establish an indemnity fund within the Department of Livestock to be able to better help facilitate that negotiation and get the things done we need done in animal health and make sure that our producers are fully compensated for that. We also have legislation dealing with garbage feeding of swine. This is a bill that I know many times during the session we're going to have to explain what it's not. It is not dry distillers grain. It is not those grains that people pick up from breweries and distilleries. It's not rendered products, but the act of actually feeding refuse to swine. Our concern there is that that can be a very significant vector for the spread of African swine fever should it come to our continent. It also, diseases, fast-moving contagious diseases that have long life, like foot and mouth disease, for example. All of these are things that we worry about feeding garbage, particularly food garbage, to pigs. And so we're looking at discontinuing that within the state of Montana in the future. And we're also looking to modernize our custom exempt meat processing language during the upcoming session. I also wanted to point out a big piece for us during the legislature is going to be talking about the veterinary diagnostic lab. The veterinary diagnostic lab has been placed into the governor's long-range planning budget for the upcoming session. It is going to be a heavy lift to get that through this session. First, most of those capital projects rarely go through on their first time in front of the legislature. And this one, with the amount of general fund that's going to be required, not to be too pessimistic, we just know it's going to be a heavy lift given the economic concerns that we're going to be facing in the upcoming session. But bottom line is that we're looking at funding a brand new veterinary diagnostic lab in the neighborhood of $30 million. $25 million of that would be the Department of Livestock. The other $5 million would be the Department of Agriculture, who is also adding an ag or moving their ag analytical lab to join us in that facility. Should we be able to get it through? $12.5 million of that we'll be asking to come from general fund, $12.5 million of that being able to come from the Department of Livestock. And while it's going to be a tough session to have that type of conversation, we're just actually pleased that we're sitting here today after several years of hard work by many, many people to have a visual concept of what a new veterinary diagnostic lab would look like, know what we need in that new veterinary diagnostic lab for the future, and actually be able to articulate a financial path forward to building a new veterinary diagnostic lab. Even though the challenges will be difficult getting that funding, and we hope that in the future, if it doesn't come to pass this session, in future sessions, we'd be able to take more of that funding on the Department of Livestock, reduce the general fund component, which might make it more palatable to the legislature. The reality there is that we really have a significant view into what the future of the veterinary diagnostic lab could be. Many of you who've been following that issue for 10 or 20 years know that was no easy prospect to get to this place in that conversation. I also want to point out that on the budget side, we're feeling very good about our budget. We are proposing a budget that we are asking for authority that is less than our expected revenue. So we're being fiscally conservative in what we're putting forward. We have relatively few new asks in adding to our budget, but we feel it's a budget that will be stable and continue to support the work of the Department of Livestock over the next biennium. A few other things I wanted to mention is we did, like stock growers, put forward comments on electronic ID with the U.S. Department of Agriculture this fall. Surprisingly, without a lot of consultation, our comments were very similar to those comments that were put forward by stock growers. We, like stock growers, defended the importance of brands to Western states and not wanting to see any movement towards electronic ID interfere with that. We also lifted up the importance of the tattoos and tags on bangs vaccinated animals, especially in a state that is still dealing with a brucellosis reservoir. So our comments were very similar to stock growers in that respect. Another big issue we've been working on is a brands policy review. We probably won't really get into that until next year, but I do want to give a public thank you to Ed Fryer, Waddy Taylor. Those guys came and met with us here in Helena not long ago to talk about, I think we did a great job of identifying the problems with the brands system, but we now need to identify some solutions. And so that's where I ask stock growers members to talk to your board members, talk through your policy committee to help us figure out how we open up and how we make more brands available to people out there across the state of Montana without undermining the real efficacy of the brand system we have in place as a tool for individual identification of animals and the ability to use it in theft and fraud investigations. We have begun CWD testing at the Veterinary Diagnostic Lab. We've already run several thousand CWD tests this fall. We project somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000 tests that we'll run when hunting season is over. It's our first year doing that, but already we think that that's going to be, it's paying for itself, and that's going to be a great addition to our lab. And it's cutting down on the time for FWP and getting those results, because those tests are not going to Fort Collins, Colorado, and having to come back. I also wanted to address meat processing really quickly. You know, that is something that we at the state level have been working on and trying to grow meat processing capacity across Montana. There's lots of federal legislation that's moving that could have impacts on us in the future in regards to meat processing. The Department of Agriculture rolled out $12.5 million from the CARES Act. We're seeing a lot of infrastructure being developed across the state. Time will tell if that's going to have any real significant impact on our processing capacity or not. But baby steps are being taken forward to mitigate some of the problems that really got exposed over the last few months through COVID. I did want to address the Board of Livestock as we head towards the legislative session, and with a new governor-elect in place. I know that that's on the minds of a lot of people out there. We do have 2 terms that will be coming up during this upcoming session, ending in March of 2021. Those are both cattle appointments, and will have to be reassessed by the new governor. We also had 2 recess appointments that happened during the last biennium that will be forwarded to the Senate for confirmation, and some action will have to take place in regards to those 2 recess appointments, whether the Senate confirms them or if the Senate does not confirm them, and then the new governor-elect decides how to move forward with those 2 positions. In those 2 that were recess appointments, 1 is cattle and 1 is sheep. So I would encourage that if you have an interest in being on the Board of Livestock, many of you know that servemontana.com is Governor-elect Jim Forte's transition website. You should be going there to declare your interest in serving on the Board of Livestock if that is something that you have in mind. We will also be watching very carefully the federal transition as we move forward. Agencies like USDA APHIS, the Ag Marketing Service, FSIS. These are all agencies that we receive funding from at the Department of Livestock. And so we'll be watching very closely how things shake out there and who we'll be dealing with into the future at the federal level within those agencies. I also wanted to mention really quick that DSA testing is in full swing this fall. We've seen an uptick in testing after our blip last year when we changed over to the new FPA test, which was more sensitive, which led to more suspect animals, and we had sort of a downturn in voluntary testing. But voluntary testing seems to be on the rebound, which we think will be good for DSA surveillance. Things continue to go smoothly with the new areas that we expanded the DSA into recently over the last 2 years. With that, those are the big issues that I wanted to mention with the time I had. I did want to turn over the microphone briefly to our brands administrator, Ethan Wilfor, to discuss the brand re-record that's upcoming here in just now several weeks.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you for having me. So the biggest priority, as Mike said, for the division is the brand re-record that will start on January 1st, so right around the corner. The re-record runs from January 1st of 2021 to December 31st of 2021. Sometime in the middle of December, the week of the 14th, we'll be sending out packets to all brand owners. It's crucial that if you don't get a packet and you own a brand, you give us a call. So if you don't receive one by the end of the month, please call the department and we'll make sure we get that packet out to you. So there are 3 ways that you're going to be able to re-record your brand, and there's more information in the packet. The first way will be to do that online. There is an additional processing fee to record online, but it is the quickest and easiest way to re-record your brand. The second way would be to fill that packet out and mail that letter back to us in an envelope provided in that packet. And the last way will be to take that packet and drop it off at the Helen office, and we'll process it right there. I also just want to let you know if you guys have any questions regarding re-record, please feel free to give us a call or email us. All our staff and Helen are happy to help. Thanks.
Thank you, Ethan, for that update. That's going to be an extremely important thing for us over the next year to get all of our brands re-recorded around the state and hopefully get that done within the 12-month period. We did have a question regarding the lab financing. I know I went through that relatively quick as we're trying to stay on time, but I will address and be a little more specific to the veterinary diagnostic lab proposal that we currently have in Long Range Building. That'll be a part of the 2021 session that's upcoming. The total cost of concept for the brand new lab building is around $30 million in rough numbers, but a portion of that is borne by the Department of Agriculture because their ag analytical lab would be moving out of McCall Hall on campus and then moving into this facility with us. So our cost roughly for the Department of Livestock is $25 million for the veterinary diagnostic lab component. The current proposal that we have put forward that we see as a possibility, should we be able to get the funding, is that we would be requesting about $12.5 million of our $25 million component to come from general funds, state general funds. The other $12.5 million would come from Department of Livestock funding. About $6 to $7 million of that would be a down payment that we actually have in reserves in the department because we've managed ourselves very well over the last few years and built up a significant capital reserve to be able to do that. The remaining $5 to $6 million portion would be bonded over a period of time, 20 to 30 years, and then paid back in annual payments by Department of Livestock. The sorts of funds that we intend to use for that would be per capita fee or user fees that come in through the lab in what we charge out for diagnostic testing. I hope that answers the question and gives us a little bit more structure and detail to the current proposal. I probably should mention real quick what I meant by we might be able to do more in the future. Obviously, we are constructing our budget in a way to be able to continue to grow that capital reserve. So if we don't get a new veterinary diagnostic lab in this session, when we get to the next session, a greater amount of that component would be able to be borne by the department and less be able to be borne by state general funds. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, guys. So it's on to our subcommittee business. We'll start off with the seat stock subcommittee and bring back Ella.
Thanks, Dan. So we just wanted to run through real quickly where we are with the directory, this year's directory, and where we're going with the directory auction since we don't have our normal venue with the annual meeting. So this past directory, the gross proceeds were a little over $130,000. That was down about $10,000 from the year before. The priority page made up about $100,000 of that $130,000. So all ads are important, but we're here today to make sure that we're pitching that directory and the fact that, you know, it's an important source of income for the Stockgrowers General Fund, and we just want to do everything we can to make it be a successful directory auction again and make it user friendly for everybody out there. The board just made the decision that we're going to have this year's priority page directory auction as part of the Diamond Ring sale in Billings in January. I think it's the 8th and 9th are the dates of that sale. I don't know that it's been determined which date the priority page auction is going to be, but for sure we will obviously be in touch and be promoting how that is going to happen. That will be a live auction. We don't know if we will have the ability to stream it or not, but we certainly will have, we encourage you to attend in person. That should be fun, different venue. But we certainly will have, Devin will be able to take your bid, and we will be reaching out to you. Devin, Lori, or I, or maybe other staff or board members will be reaching out to past priority page buyers to make sure you know how to bid or to buy. Anyone that is interested in a priority page, if you haven't bought in the past, be sure you reach out to somebody and somebody will help you with that for sure. Again, Devin Mernon works on that directory, and Lori Venice, they both put a lot of work into that. Thank you for what they do with that. And for a few seed stock producers, we've gotten together and kind of bantered the idea around of offering or being able or presenting the idea of being able to offer bull bucks at annual meeting. Obviously, it's not happening this year. Be patient. We have talked about it a little bit with staff, and nothing certainly has been decided, but we're aware of the idea, and I think it could be fun, but just I'm going to have to kick that can down the road a little bit. So I think that's all I can think of for the directory and the seed stock committee. Thank you. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Della. It is my understanding, are there any resolutions to come before the seed stock committee? Nothing on the platform?
Specifically said that.
Okay. So you want to set up for Tanner? It's two. Okay, so we're going to hang with us here. We've got Tanner Beamer coming up from NCBA to talk about some price discovery info. But while we're waiting for him, we've got several resolutions. We're going to start with the Cattle Health Subcommittee. And we're going to do this a little different. So we've broken these down into categories. We'll have the Cattle Health Subcommittee. We've got lots of old resolutions that need to either be renewed, amended, or deleted. So what we've done is we've lumped these in. Have you got these up on screen? Start with CH005. We'll lump as many of these as we can together at one time. If anybody wants to set one of these aside, please let us know on the computer, and we can set that aside for further discussion. But otherwise, we'll lump the recommended renews together, and then we'll try to just vote to renew all these. And I just want to stress that these are not new resolutions. These are old resolutions that Jay has gone through the policy book, and he recommends either to renew, to delete because it's obsolete in most cases, or to amend, just for mostly changing times and changing policies. And then when you have new resolutions, I'll be sure to let you know that those are new resolutions. We're trying to minimize the amount of time you all have to vote, and we have to count it here. So hang with us. And where are we?
We're good to go.
CH005. This is a recommended renew. Is that right on the screen? Okay, great. Pharmaceutical, easy for me to say. Labeling approval. I'm going to skip the whereases in the interest of time. Therefore, be resolved, MSGA urges NCBA to work with FDA and pharmaceutical companies to streamline the approval and labeling process of new and institutionalized products, and continue supporting vet-client relationships in cases where extra label use is the only effective means of treatment. So we'll give a second for any discussion out there, and if I don't get the signal, I'm going to move on. CH026, mandatory OCV. This is a recommended renewal. Therefore, be it recommended MSGA Board of Directors work with the Department of Livestock on areas of mandatory official calf foot vaccination. Therefore, be it further recommended MSGA opposes statewide mandatory calf foot vaccination. And be it further recommended that the counties in the designated DSA have mandatory brucellosis vaccination of all eligible sexually intact female animals originating in or moving into the DSA counties. Any feedback on that? I don't see any. I'm going to move on. CH028, trichomoniasis. Be it resolved, MSGA is in favor of the current Department of Livestock's ARM 32.3.507 and supports the process of detention and prevention of the disease trick within the boundaries of state grazing districts associations. Be returned to the boards of said districts associations upon compliance with 32.3.5072 and all other trick rules. Any feedback? All right. CH029, brand registration. Recommend renew. Be it resolved, MSGA supports brand registration renewal frequency to remain as is. CHO 31, confidentiality. Therefore, be it resolved, MSGA supports legislation that protects the confidentiality of ranch data while balancing the interests of animal and public health. CHO 39, recommended renew. Therefore, be it recommended that MSGA work with the Department of Livestock to change the brand inspection rules so that pasture permits can only be obtained with the collaboration of the district brand inspector in the district or county where the cattle are going to reside. All right, last recommended renew would be CHO 40, select agents and toxins list, recommended renew. Therefore, be it resolved, MSGA supports removing the zoonotic organism B. abortus from the CDC and USDA select agent and toxins list. Be it further resolved, MSGA worked with Montana Department of Livestock, Montana Fish and Wildlife Parks, Montana's congressional delegation, and their sister agencies and individuals in Idaho and Wyoming to encourage the CDC and APHIS to remove 6 Brucella abortus from the select agent list. Be it further resolved, MSGA with MDOL and USDA APHIS to identify research facilities and or pharmaceutical companies who may be encouraged to undertake the development of an effective vaccine for immunization against brucellosis. Be it further resolved, MSGA work with other entities to identify funding sources for this research effort. So we lump those together. Those are all the recommend renews. I have no way to get a motion in a second, so I think the only way we can do this is, I would say, without objection, we need to type in, I would recommend we renew all 6 of these policies. So we probably need to take a few minutes, let everybody vote. So yeah, at this time, we're voting to recommend those 6 renewals. Excuse me, to renew those 6 resolutions. Maybe once we have these votes counted, then we want to go, we have 10. Okay. Okay, great, thank you. We're working our way through this. All right, so we'll do the same thing. These are some policies that Jay has recommended to amend. First one, CHO 14, bison quarantine facility, he wants to strike. Whereas the Montana Department of Fish and Wildlife Parks elk brucellosis management plan is in direct conflict with the bison quarantine facility. Everything else would stay the same. That's all I need to read. Hearing nothing, we'll move on to CHO 38, which is also a recommend to amend Yellowstone bison EIS population. Just cleaning up some language that you can see, therefore be it resolved. MSGA supports no increase in the current population goal of 3,000 for the entire Yellowstone area bison herd. Be it further resolved, MSGA supports no areas outside Yellowstone National Park where migrating bison are tolerated. And be it further resolved, MSGA supports the vaccination of captured bison in the park. So let's vote again on these two recommended amends. So we'll vote to amend those resolutions at this time. I guess there was only one delete. We probably could have that in there. Okay, we got all yes votes to amend CH14 Bison Quarantine Facility and amend CHO 38 Yellowstone Bison EIS and population. Okay. We just have one recommend to delete under cattle health, which would be CHO 36, which is obsolete. It just says therefore, and this is what we're deleting, or voting to delete. Therefore, be it directed, MSGA Board of Directors petition the Board of Livestock to review and evaluate at once the leadership of the Department of Livestock and take appropriate necessary action. I don't think we need to do that. So at this time, let's vote on that one deletion. Voting to delete CHO 36. Okay, thank you. That will be deleted. Okay, now this is a new resolution, so we'll slow down a little bit and take a little more time for discussion. This is on official RFID tags submitted by the Judith Basin Stockgrowers. And it says, be it recommended, MSGA supports any official USDA RFID ear tags, which include a state identifier on each tag. So how do we handle discussion on this? Okay, so we understand there's a picture of the tag. Can't see the picture. Is the identifier, the state identifier on the tag or the button? Does anybody know the answer to that? Do we have anybody on the line from Judith Basin Stockgrowers? You're on both, okay. Discussion?
So we have Maggie Miller asked, but is there any control on who has access to the RFID information?
Don't have the answer. Okay, say it again, Kim.
Maggie Miller asked, but is there any control on who has access to the RFID information?
Is there any control on who has access to the RFID information? So if somebody could answer that. Is Dr. Rankin on somewhere?
Janine Rankin is going to be out on the screen.
Great.
Hey, can you tell Janine that she's on?
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, bear with us, folks. We're still figuring this out. Is Janine on?
Hello,
Okay, great.
can you make that larger, that, instead of the resolution, can you make that tag, pamphlet I had larger?
We did.
On our screens, it doesn't show up as very large, it's tiny.
Tell her to click twice on the screen and it should maximize it.
Click twice on the screen and it should maximize it, I'm told.
Okay, so if everybody would do that, they can see what we're talking about on the tags. It did work. So the resolution is brought forward because the silver tags that we're used to, the orange banks tags and the silver plain tags, all have a state identifier on them. So the 81 that starts the tag number sequence, it relates to Montana. Every state has a different series of numbers, those first two. And so when the RFID tags first came out for the DSA that were part of our cooperative agreement money, they're on the top of this pamphlet that I made, or this flyer. And if you enlarge it, you can see that it said Montana, or it said MTOCV on both the male adapter, the male part, and the button tag. And now what's happening is, and those, if you want those tags, they cost us money, veterinarians, and so you have to pass that on if you're doing your brucellosis testing or tag vaccinating, excuse me. But USDA is now providing free tags to Department of Livestock, then to disperse to veterinarians. And if you look at it, the next orange button down, the second one there, it has printed OCV really small on the male pin, and then nothing on the button. But those are free tags now. And if you scroll down to the white tags at the bottom, and those are free from USDA to the veterinarian to do like official testing, or if they needed to send some breeding animals over the age of 18 months out of state, then these are tags that are free to use, but again, no state identifier. Whereas if you look, it's kind of hard to see, but the silver tag there says 81. The fact is that they're not making any more silver metal tags, period. They won't be available. So what's out there and veterinarians have, or you have, once they're gone, used up, they're gone. So my question then at the bottom of that pamphlet, if you could scroll down, whoever's handling there's some comments. You can scroll down that pamphlet. The whole idea is, do you want to have a state identifier on your RFID tags or not? And so my clients prefer that they do. And so I go ahead and have them printed, and then I have to pass that cost on. The information, I know there was a question about where the information is held, and it's like any RFID tag. They're checked out to me. Then when I put them in to the client, then they have a Prem ID number that's just held at the state. It's until you start using the tag, going across state lines, that then that tag is on whatever document that you're getting. One of the questions is how much extra cost. It's roughly, it depends on the tag company, but $2.50 to $3 is my cost when I only buy them about 200 at a time. So you can, my point to this is, can we, as an association, request then that these tags contain at least MT on the mail pin, which could be set aside in the tag manufacturer's warehouse, so that it's not a big deal, because according to NAS statistics, they know how many tags we're going to use, how many actual animals each state has. So that has been the argument in the past, is that these tag companies would have to then have a state section for each state. And of course, with the metal tags, they were always that way. So I'm open to any questions, but that's why we brought forth this resolution. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm not hearing anybody else.
Okay, so can you hear me now, Janine?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We have a question of how much, and I know you addressed it, but maybe address it a little more, how much the extra cost of this will be.
So what is the cost when your animal goes out of state and it doesn't say what state it's on? That's one of the questions that our producers brought up. My cost on those tags vary between $2.39 and $2.75. But I can put MT OCV on them.
I don't need to be.
Can you roll up that screen? The tags at the bottom of the tags. There's some writing. Okay, this is the wrong page. There should be a second page, but we've covered the details. Yep, that page. There you go. So people can read what's actually happening now. I see you, President Wacker.
This is Fred Wacker from Miles City, and I oppose the wording on this. Part of it, the first part would be recommended. MSU supports official USD RFID tags. I do oppose the mandatory listing of state as an identifier. I believe it's going to increase the cost. They run these tags, and we buy them about 15,000 of them per year and put them in all our yearlings and our calves. And if it increases it to everybody and of all of the producers, I think we need to lock down what the prices are. And I think at this time, I don't think we want to support the part of this change in the resolution.
The price when I have these created aren't any different if I have anything put on them or not. So they're not extra.
That the price isn't different.
Okay, I have not seen that. I bought a lot of tags. We use about, for 15 years, we've used the RFID tag. I support using it. Most people read those. Virtually everybody reads them with a scanner, including the packing houses and including the ranchers that use them. And it tells you your numbers, and it tells you who this number was issued to. And so I don't see where we need to do that. And I have no information at this point that says that it isn't going to cost additional money, Jeannie. So I with supporting this as written, maybe at a later date after we get some written confirmation.
Thank you.
So Tyler Mounts asked if we're using
Hi, Jeannie. This is Bob Sitz.
Hi.
In the DSA around, in the Harrison Bozeman area there, we've been using these tags since 2003. And one of the things I see is there's a lot of button failure. Not so much the reader part, it's the backside. And in the old days, there used to be some steel pin buttons. And I'm not so sure if this is going to be a permanent ID for livestock, if they shouldn't go back and look at those old steel pin buttons that they used to have along with this.
Good comment. Thank you. Ty, can I answer Ty's question? This is just supporting the USDA RFID tags, which USDA means the 840. And so any 840, you don't have to use the Banks tag. You don't have to use these tags. You can get your own, like your Angus source and verification. They're all fine. It's just the USDA has supplied free tags in the past that had a Montana identifier on them, so that boots on the ground, if you're looking at a stray or if you're looking at where this animal came from, you knew that they were either bangs vaccinated in Montana or Colorado or wherever, or if you had another silver tag in them, you know at least that they were in Montana. When you read them with the wand, then you have to match that up somewhere to a state system. So you need to call your state veterinarian to find out where those tags came from, and then they'll have to track them through the entire country. So you can't even start at one state. And you can't also then prove that this cow, this great breeding animal came from Montana, because it's just a number until you find that. So it can be verified through the numbers, but not by just reading the tag.
Yes. Oh, okay. So we have another question. We age and source verify our calves using Angus source and use the RFID tag in place of the orange bangs tag. As I read the resolution, this is optional.
Yes, and you can use any RFID tag that you'd like to for age and source verification. This is just strictly related to the veterinarian's use tag. So anytime that you had the vet out to do either bangs vaccinating or bangs testing, or if you had to go across state lines and they required an official ID, the clips are no longer available. And so if you don't want a fee, the vet can use these USDA free tags without a state identifier. You can use any RFID tag on your ranch or program that you'd like. You don't need to use these. These are the ones for official work.
Repeat that one more time.
Okay, so when you vote, type in your first and last name. If you're in favor of the amendment, write aye, type in aye. Opposed, type in nay. Or no would do. Once again, a reminder, we are voting on the new resolution, official RFID tags brought by the Judith Basin Stockgrowers that says, be it recommended, MSGA supports any official USDA RFID ear tags, which include a state identifier on each tag. That's the resolution on the table, which we are voting on at the moment. Yeah, there were no amendments made to this resolution, so this is just a vote up or down. Something beeped, something must have happened.
I just got an email.
Again, we appreciate your patience as we wade through this process. We'll get it.
Yes, 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 yes.
Currently, the vote is very close. You've heard that recently. No mail-in ballots will be accepted.
It's official.
It fails? Okay, the resolution fails. What was the count?
18-17.
So it's 18 to 17. So does that have to go to a mail-out ballot? No?
That's second and third reading.
That's second and third reading. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your patience with that, folks. And that will conclude the cattle health. And now we're going to go to our marketing committee sub-chair. And I believe we have Tanner Beamer on from NCBA to discuss the NCBA price discovery. And Kenny, I have nothing on my screen up here, just an iCloud notification.
Hey, Dan, Tanner's on. Ask him if he can hear you.
Pardon?
Tanner is on.
Tanner, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent.
All right, go ahead. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thanks for letting me join your event virtually today. I had the privilege of addressing the board earlier, and like I told them, I'd much prefer to be with you all in Montana as opposed to here in Washington, D.C. So I've been told that we're running a little short on time, and I don't want to keep you longer than is necessary. So we'll just go ahead and dive right into NCBA's voluntary framework to achieve price discovery of the fed cattle market. I guess I should probably click on my screen here so I can activate it. There we go. So all of this is predicated, for those of you that may not be aware or those that want a refresher, it's predicated on a policy that unanimously passed the Live Cattle Marketing Committee at our summer business meeting in Denver back in August, or I guess it was late July. That meeting was over 6 hours long. There was a lot of discussion on both sides of the issue, and what ultimately came out of it was this. It's a very, very long policy, but I just pulled out the high points. NCBA supports a voluntary approach that increases frequent and transparent negotiated trade to regionally sufficient levels. That plan has to include triggers to be determined by a working group of NCBA producer leaders by October 1st. If the voluntary approach does not achieve robust price discovery, NCBA will pursue a legislative or regulatory solution as determined by our membership. That working group was appointed shortly after this resolution was passed, and our president, Marty Smith, named 6 individuals to that subgroup. It was chaired. The 7th person was Jerry Bone, our president-elect from Kansas, and that group spent the better part of 2 months meeting twice a week for several hours at a time sometimes to come up with the price discovery policy that I'm going to walk you through right now. So first and foremost, our plan is concentrated on what USDA AMS calls the 5 area. It's the 5 predominant cattle feeding regions in the United States where the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of fed cattle are transacted. Those regions are Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, that's one. Iowa and Minnesota, that's another. And then Kansas, Nebraska, and Colorado are all their own regions. Colorado doesn't very often report this information due to confidentiality. So for our own internal purposes, we're going to combine Colorado with Nebraska in order to make sure that we have some information for that group. There are two silos that we monitor throughout this plan. There's a negotiated trade silo and a packer participation silo. The subgroup believes very strongly that both of these are critical components to making sure that we have price discovery in the fed cattle markets. Negotiated trade, obviously, is where we get the bulk of price discovery because of that buyer and seller interaction to arrive at an agreed upon price. And packer participation, because your information is only as good as the market integrity underlying it. So they need to have packers participate in that negotiated trade in order to make sure that the market is functioning properly. We define negotiated trade such that it includes both negotiated cash and negotiated grids. So those that want to contribute to price discovery while at the same time taking advantage of premiums that they can get for certain grid structures can do so. Because if you negotiate the base price of a grid, that is that direct buyer-seller interaction to where they arrive at a mutually agreed upon base price, and then the premiums can be added or discount subtracted, whatever the case may be. We also use the robust trade or the robust price discovery trade volume requirements that are outlined by Dr. Stephen Kuntz in his 2016 research objective measures of price discovery. And we'll go over those levels here in just a minute. Actually, we'll go over those levels right now. If you look at the center column, those are what Dr. Kuntz says need to trade via negotiated means each week per region in order to have what we call robust price discovery. He has two levels, a minimum level, which is the bare bones for price discovery, and then robust is a larger number, and that increases the sample size to really make sure that there's enough data in the marketplace to understand exactly what the price discovery is in that region. And we'll come back to this slide in a second so I can explain what that red box is. Packer participation is also, like I said, very important, but USDA doesn't currently report any of the information that we would need in order to look at this silo. So what we're doing now, the subgroup is continuing to meet to develop a packer participation silo. It is not yet complete. But we are looking at ways to utilize market reporting services, maybe through our state affiliate organizations, maybe through cattle facts, to try and get a good sense of where the packers are participating in negotiated trade, what regions, and whether or not that is enough for that price discovery in that region. We're hopeful that we can finalize that here in the coming weeks, and we're working very diligently to do just that. Okay, so the policy says that this approach needs to include triggers, and it gets a little wonky in here, so try and bear with me. There's a difference between a minor trigger and a major trigger. We're going to be evaluating each region's performance on a quarterly basis in arrears, which means we're looking back at the data in the previous quarter as opposed to looking at it in real time. If there are two trigger silos, negotiated trade and packer participation, and there are 4 regions in our framework. Remember, Colorado and Nebraska are combined. 4 times 2 gives you a total of 8 minor triggers. And in any given quarter, if we trip 3 or more minor triggers, that shall constitute a major trigger. So if you look at this fictional example on the right-hand side of the PowerPoint, you'll see that we did not meet packer participation obligations in Nebraska, Colorado, nor did we meet negotiated trade in Kansas. But that's only 2 of the minor triggers. A major trigger would not have been tripped in this, again, fictional example. So that leads me to the 75% plan. On a quarterly basis, the subgroup will analyze each region's performance for both trigger silos. We'll use LMR data published by the Agricultural Marketing Service at USDA to inform the performance of each of those regions. And because Dr. Kuntz's numbers are contemplated in terms of head per week, we also will utilize that information in a weekly basis. We really need to see exactly what each of the regions are doing on a weekly basis in order to have a pretty firm understanding of exactly what is occurring in each of those regions. There we go. And to avoid tripping a major trigger, each region must weekly trade 75% or higher of what Dr. Kuntz says is needed for robust price discovery. They have to do that on a negotiated basis, no less than 75% of the reporting weeks in any given quarter. And then at the same time, they have to weekly meet their packer participation obligations. Again, that will be determined at a later date, no less than 75% of the reporting weeks in any given quarter. If a major trigger is tripped during any 2 out of 4 rolling quarters, our subgroup is going to recommend that NCBA pursue a legislative or regulatory measure to make sure that there is adequate price discovery in the marketplace. We want to have a industry-driven voluntary program in place to get there without the government stepping in. But in the event we don't get that, we're not ruling that out. We have a fallback plan in place to make sure that we can get price discovery in the marketplace. To me, this is the most important provision of the entire framework. It can be adjusted periodically from time to time. That can take into account changing conditions of supply and demand, updated research. If we see new information coming from Dr. Kuntz, that maybe adjust those numbers a little bit. And then also whether or not 2 out of 4 rolling quarters is the best approach for recommending legislative solutions. Maybe it's 2 quarters in a calendar year. Maybe it's 2 consecutive quarters. But most importantly here is it goes both ways, right? We are not going to adjust the framework downward to be able to say, hey, we're not hitting triggers because we moved the goalpost. However, if we are getting to the point where we're not tripping any minor triggers in a quarter, everybody's hitting the levels that they need to under our plan, we might adjust it upward and say, instead of maybe 75%, we strive for 85%. The ultimate goal is to get to 100% of robust 100% of the time in 100% of the regions. The reason that we started with 75% is because if you look back over the last 3 years and apply this framework to the past data, Texas and Kansas and the Southern Plains are going to fail the majority of our quarters, and that's going to trip triggers. But what you've seen starting in about the the second quarter of 2020 is a significant uptick in the negotiated trade for both of those regions. There's a firm understanding amongst our affiliates there and the feed yards that they represent that they need to step up. They need to put more cattle on show lists, offer more negotiated cattle to contribute to price discovery. And we're seeing a very positive response in those regions. Again, we ultimately want to get to 100% robust 100% of the time, but we want to make sure we're not setting ourselves up for failure right at the get-go. It's okay to go and ask for help in a situation where it's needed, but anytime you involve the government in a situation, it's very difficult to get them out if we don't like the results down the road. We want to make sure we're doing everything possible to avoid that unless we need to go down that route. So with that, I think that pretty well covers an overview. I'll stop there if there are any questions, and I think Kenny may be moderating that Q&A portion.
Ask for questions, ask people to ask questions.
And whatever questions you might have, feel free to make sure and include those on the dialogue down there as we await the return of our fearless leader, Dan Moore. I just have to step out for a few seconds, but questions are always encouraged as we continue to thank Tanner for joining us here today. Dan?
Thank you, Tanner. Oh, wait. Oh.
Dan, can I ask a question, Dan?
If you're still, are you still there, Tanner?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Shane.
Yeah, Tanner, we've had a voluntary industry-led framework in the live cattle market going backwards in history here. Montana producers have lost a tremendous amount of equity in the last year and a half. And I think they want to see some action and some results. And can you explain to the membership that you think this is action and results to help them avoid further equity losses going forward? Because we have to get 2 rolling quarters out of 4. And if the Packers play any more funny business to get around these 75% thresholds, what degree of confidence can the membership have that this is going to get results for us? Thank you.
Well, sure. Obviously, to guarantee an outcome is to set oneself up for failure, and that's why we have that fallback plan in place to be able to go and ask for a legislative or regulatory solution if that is in fact necessary. I would say to you that there has been action. I don't know that we've had a voluntary framework per se. There have been calls within the industry, certainly for a very long time, to fix price discovery in the cattle space, and not just the fed cattle market. It could be feeders, it could be calves, it could be anything. And to that, I would say, you know, one of the things that this makes this effort different from those of the past is that it's pretty standardized across the industry. And there is a pretty firm bar set as far as expectations are concerned. And there's the ability to hold each other accountable to get to that. You know, if you look at Iowa and Minnesota, which is a lot of small farmer feeders, not a lot of corporate yards up there, quite a few cow-calf guys up in that part of the world as well, you know, they don't need to do a lot to hit 100% of the Kuntz numbers 100% of the time. They already do that most weeks just as is. But Texas and Kansas, like we've talked about, are the ones that struggle to get up to those robust price discovery thresholds at negotiated trade. And so this framework allows us to view that in real time, communicate that to our feeders there, to our members, to our state affiliate members in those parts of the country, and say, hey guys, appreciate the progress, but we need to see more. We need to get up there to those levels that the researchers tell us are what's necessary to have good price discovery in the marketplace. And I think you've seen the results of that. If you go and pull the LMR data, looking back just into the second quarter of this year, you see that they start to hit that 75% level way more frequently than they did at any point between 2017 through the first quarter of 2020. It's not a silver bullet solution, folks, and I would be lying to you if I told you that it was. But what it does do is it sets clear benchmark for the industry to strive toward and puts in place an accountability program to help everybody get there.
Okay, further questions for Tanner? Okay, thank you, Tanner, very much. Appreciate your time. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
So moving on in the marketing committee, we've got some resolutions, some renewals, some amendments. We're going to try to do it as we did before. The first one, we have several policies on the beef checkoff, and a lot of them are old, a lot of them are outdated, a lot of them need to be amended. So what we did, and obviously we have lots and lots of policy on the beef checkoff. So I think President Wacker put together a committee of Jim and John Grandy and Turk Stovall to kind of go through this policy and recommend tweak it to where it's a little more consistent. So I've asked John just to tell you a little bit of what their goal was here. John.
Thank you, Dan. And yeah, Dan already explained some of this at the mid-year meeting. This committee was appointed. So Jim Steinbeiser, Turk Stovall, and I met with Jay Bodner, and we came up with some direction. We had at least 10 resolutions on the books that had come up at various times for various things. We wanted to simplify and clarify. More confusingly, some of those for valid reasons. Some came through the marketing committee and some came through ag policy, and that's going to remain, but we're going to clarify as best we can. So our recommendations will be, and Dan's going to walk through these, but quite simply, that we're going to delete some, keep some, combine some would be our recommendation to you. For example, marketing 030, that one has been done. There's no reason to keep it on the books anymore. We can declare victory and move on. It's a done deal. Marketing 036 is no longer relevant. It replies to how we were approaching some proposals that have been withdrawn. They're no longer on the table and have been for some years, so it's just not relevant anymore. And then some others refer to things within the act and order that just would be a cumbersome and expensive process to open up. So we're recommending deleting those, as well as then some were just for housekeeping reasons. We can combine them, put them together, so we'll hit all the same points, but just do it in fewer policies. So that's just the gist of it. Dan's going to walk through these, and I'll help out if necessary. Thank you.
Thanks, John. We're running late, so I'm actually going to run through these. So we're going to try to make up a little time here and get through these recommended amends. MO 31, and again, any objections or anybody wants something set aside, you need to let me know or type it in so they can let me know. All right, here we go. MO 31, promotion of U.S. beef. Therefore, be it resolved, MSGA Beef Promotion, the needs to come out of there, Beef Promotion and Research Act to state in the statute that the promotion, what am I doing? No, I'm right, okay. The promotion of U.S. beef be allowed under the act and order. And be it further resolved that the portion of checkoff funds allocated to promote U.S. beef not be greater than the portion of the checkoff fund revenues paid by U.S. producers. Okay, MO 32 we'll keep in this basket, but basically that language is going to come off the marketing subcommittee, and it's going to be on the, we're going to visit it later this afternoon in the tax committee. M008, trade quotas, therefore be it resolved. This is another recommend amend. Therefore be it resolved that MSGA actively supports maintaining equitable quotas on beef. MO38, another recommend to amend, marketing officer and Department of Agriculture. Therefore, be it resolved, MSGA supports a full-time livestock marketing officer within the Montana Department of Agriculture. So I would ask that we vote to amend those 1, 2, 3, 4 policies. Again, if we're amending MO31, MO32, M008, and MO38. So at this time, vote yea or nay. How are we doing on the vote?
Still going, so.
Still going, okay.
Where is it? Okay, can you prepare it to me?
Still voting to amend those resolutions, and we, all right, we have voted to amend those. Okay, so now we have 1, 2, 3, 4 deletions, I guess all on the beef checkoff. I was trying to get somebody to step in here that could maybe just give you a brief sentence on each one. In the interest of time, there's no reason to read it all through. If we're voting to delete them, we can. If, again, any objections, anybody wants anything set aside, holler out and we'll get that done. But I'm going to have John come back up and just quickly walk you through these 4 recommended deletions to tell you why. Thanks, John.
Okay, sorry about that, Dan. So we're on 28, 29, 30, and and, okay, yeah, as I mentioned briefly earlier, 30 is the one that, referring to the organizations, that's done. That has been changed. So the policy that we wanted, it's basically a done deal. 36 refers to a proposal that was on the books, is no longer there anymore, so it's just not relevant anymore. 28 and 29 are a little different. The purpose of our committee, we tried as best we could to just do kind of housekeeping things and get these in a better format, better order without making what I would call substantive changes. 28 and 29 are somewhat an exception to that. They would be something I would consider more of a substantive change. The reason we recommend deletion of those is because they both refer to ways of things that would require opening up the act and order for either changing the fee or for calling for a referendum. Our concern is, number one, that to do that, anytime you start doing that, if at some time we need to badly, but when the act and order is opened up, that's going to be a result of a bunch of people getting involved in kind of a negotiated agreement, and just to do it under our terms doesn't seem very realistic. Whereas to the other side of this is all, anytime we have a referendum, those referendums are paid for out of checkoff dollars. As part of the checkoff, they routinely do producer surveys, and it routinely comes back that somewhere in the mid to high 70% of people paying the checkoff support it. Our thought is if we know that 70, 75, 80% of the people support it, why should we have a referendum at checkoff expense to show what we're already doing? And there is a program or a process in place already to have referendums, as we have one going on right now. There's a call for a referendum, and we support the ability to call for a referendum as is being done now, but don't think it needs to be done on a regular basis at checkoff expense. Does that help, Dan?
You were the perfect man for the job there, John. Thank you very much. It's obvious you weren't sleeping during those meetings. If I hear no objections, see no objections, or anybody wants to set anything aside, I guess I wouldn't entertain a motion, but I would propose that we would vote to delete MO28, MO29, MO30, and MO34, right? Six? Oh, yeah, and I skipped MO36. So if there are no objections, let's vote on those. Oh, right, no, I'm wrong. We are not voting on MO34 right now. MO36. Voting to delete MO28, MO29, MO30, and MO36, not 34. We'll talk about that in a second. Just once again, in an effort to clean up our books, we're voting to delete MO28, MO29, MO30, and MO36. Okay, good. Thank you for your cooperation on that, folks. Robert's probably spinning over in his grave right now, but that's about the only way we can see to get through this. We have one more recommend to delete. Do you want to do the new one first? Okay, so we have a resolution regarding this GIPSA rule. Is it up on the screen? This is actually a directive to the board. And it says, be it directed, MSGA MSGA will appoint a working group to review and make recommendations on a GIPSA policy and report back at the 2021 midyear. So we have a motion to pass that directive. Is there any discussion on the directive? Discussion on the directive. Seeing none, let's move to a vote. Type in your name, and all those in favor, yay, all opposed, nay. Once again, it says, be it directed, MSGA will appoint a working group to review and make recommendations on a GIPSA policy and report back at 2021 midyear. All right, thank you very much. Now, lastly, seeing no objections, we will recommend delete MO34. Which that, if I'm not seeing any discussions or objections, let's just vote to delete MO34. Okay, Jake, you want to say something?
Question related to the GIPSA rule, and I thought I might just provide a little bit more explanation to that. So typically, this resolution was originally written in 2010, and then it was revised in 2015. And as I looked back at this original policy in 2010, I did put a further explanation on this above there. So that's, I wanted to provide a timeline for you. So in 2000, because when we wrote this in 2010, it was relevant, and a lot of the language that currently exists in this policy is basically really not relevant today. It's basically outdated. It's talking about what happened in 2010 and what happened in 2015. It doesn't really talk about what's happening today with GIPSA. So our recommendation was to just, it was outdated. We need to revise this language. We need to put new language in place. And so our recommendation is we just delete this and we start new with a working group to write that. So I hope that provides a little bit more clarification. I did once again add that timeline of what's happened in GIPSA up above this. So that is just a refresher for you to see kind of how things played out with the GIPSA rules. So I hope that once again provides a little bit of clarification for you.
Yes, that does help, Jay. Thank you. So again, we're voting to delete MO34. While we're voting, I'm going to bring up, do we have anything for the cattle feeders committee? Yeah, we do.
The first one. It's the first one.
Oh, so it is. Good. Okay, thank you for your cooperation, folks. One more, and that will do it. In the cattle feeder committee, we just have the resolution, correct? Okay, or not a resolution. Again, this is old policy. We're recommending renewal. CF004. Therefore, be it resolved, MSGA opposes any effort by the Montana Department of Environmental Quality or the Federal Environmental Protection Agency to enact point source regulatory authority over non-point source activities associated with livestock feeding. Is there any discussions, questions in renewing this policy? I'm seeing no questions or discussion, so I would propose we vote to renew CF 004 at this time. I assume concluding this meeting, after this vote is taken, we will move directly into land use, since Lane is hovering over here. Okay. Good? Okay. So I think that's all we had. I guess unless I hear anything, we shall adjourn, and I will turn it back over to Lane.
All right, thank you so much, Dan, for helping us walk through our resolution process here today. Again, thank you so much, everyone participating online with this very new but great opportunity to continue to make our grassroots policy. Don't forget to visit our virtual trade show by clicking on the Expo tab on the left side of your screen. We will be putting an opportunity so attendees can get into the trade show area and interact with our vendors and Expo sponsors as well. Now, online voting is still available here during our virtual convention for attendees. Again, the statewide Board of Directors 2021 election is still open, and you did receive an email with your voter ID and voter key. The link for the statewide election is listed in the reception tab on the left side of your screen as well. So to check your voter status or to vote over the phone, please call the Stockgrowers Convention hotline at 442-3420. And voting for those statewide candidates will conclude here at 5 p.m. Again, we're not doing mail-in ballots on these statewide at this point here today. That concludes at 5. We will announce them during general session 2 tomorrow morning. And at this time, we are going to wrap up this module. We will come back with our Land Use and Environment Committee. Is that, what's that? 3:30. Yeah. At 3:30. So we are going to make the 10-minute break for our folks that are going to be transitioning over there. So make sure and stop and visit our trade show vendors as well on that digital platform. But we will be back, and make sure and click out of this one, and we'll join you on the next module there for the Land Use and Environment Committee. We'll be right back.